Okay, what we're going to demonstrate here is drilling electrical box into the log wall. We've already covered earlier about drilling the electrical hole down through the logs into the basement area and drilling the holes up through the logs as you're being laid. What we're going to show you now is actually installing the electrical box into the log. Okay? We would determine by measuring onto the log that's already there where our hole was. Mark it on the bottom side of the log. Okay? We would want to take that mark and we want to transfer that to the face of the log. Okay? We'll take and draw a pencil line there. The next thing we want to do, we want to actually mark our box onto the log wall here. Now there's two types of boxes. You have a plastic box, we have a steel box. Check with your electrician or your building inspector in your area. If you have the option to use a steel box, we would recommend this year being used in the log wall. A couple reasons. One, you can buy a steel box that has the rounded edges, and also with the ears that you see here on the box, when this is installed into the log wall, you can actually take some screws and put in here and hold the box into place. A little bit more user-friendly. But whichever style you have to use, that'll be determined by your local officials. When you go to put the box on the log, we highly recommend that the box be placed in the center of the log. Okay? A couple reasons for this. If you put the box at the bottom of the log, you're going to be able to see on the V-grooves here, you're going to be able to see in and see part of the box. That's one of the minor reasons. The biggest reason is if this box was put into the bottom side or the top side, you can see how deep this box is. And when that's recessed in here, you're going to be removing most of your tongue or the groove area. This is where your sealing system needs to be installed, and we don't want to disturb those areas any more than absolutely necessary. So for that reason, we highly recommend the box be placed in the center of the log. Okay? Take the box you're going to use, lay it on the log. You want to trace out your sides. Now, if you are using the steel box, you have to mark the bottom and top of the box a little bit long to allow for the screws. Okay? So when you have your box marked out here, finish out the lines. Take a utility knife, and we want to actually score the outline that we just traced onto the log. Okay? The reason we're scoring the surface of the log like this, we're going to be using this 2 1/8 inch drill bit that we had talked about earlier in the tool section, and we don't want to tear out the face of the log. So that's why we scored. You want to take your log or your drill bit, place it on the log. When you're drilling the top of the log, if you angle the bit just slightly towards the top, and then when you're drilling the bottom, angle it towards the bottom a little bit, this will remove most of the wood in the corners. It's going to require less chiseling on your part. Okay, this is what the box is going to look like when you're finished drilling out the two large holes. Okay. Now, if you noticed, when I did this hole, I actually drilled with the large bit first. The reason for that, if I would have drilled in from the bottom with my 1 inch drill bit, and when this pile would hit that hole, the way this bit is designed, it would have pulled itself down into that opening. The teeth would have caught and it would have twisted the drill out of my hand. So for a safety standpoint, we always want to drill the larger holes first. You have those drilled, turn the log up from the bottom side, and where we had marked out our hole earlier, we want to drill that with the 1 inch drill bit. Okay, hole in the bottom. While you have the box or the log laying on the sawhorse, take a wood chisel, and we want to chisel this out. Okay, now that we've chiseled the wood out, we want to take the box that you're going to use. Make sure that box is going to fit down in the hole. Okay, it's much easier to do this on the sawhorse than it is to try to do this on the log wall. Now, if you notice on the inside, surface here, we've laid the box in vertically, okay? If you're gonna do an outside receptacle, it's not a bad idea to lay the box horizontally. Okay, one of the reasons for that, being that the log has a rounded surface, the box is gonna tend to rock a little bit more. But the biggest reason is the cover plate that goes on the exterior receptacles has a foam gasket. And for that foam gasket to seal correctly so the rain doesn't get in, it must hit around all four sides. And by laying the box horizontally, there's just a very little bit on the very edge or the very roundest part of the log here that has to be chiseled out so the gasket will make proper contact all the way around. The one thing you do not want to do is place an outside receptacle directly opposite an inside receptacle. That means drill a hole from one to the other. This will allow air to come into the house or to migrate out of the house. Could get a frosting effect on the outside. Always offset the boxes at least 6 to 8 inches from inside to outside and do 2 separate holes into the basement. That way there's no chance of any air infiltrating between the two. It's also a very good idea to stuff some fiberglass insulation into the hole after the wires are pulled. That way you're assured you're going to block all the airflow. Okay, what we're going to show you here is one method of installing a block for an exterior light on your log home. What we've done here, we've actually taken a piece of 2x8 white pine and we have recessed it into the surface of the log. One of the reasons we've done this here is if you just mounted the box in the log itself, being that the log is a rounded surface and depending on the size of the base of the exterior light you're going to be hanging, the light may not hang properly. And if you have a very large base that extends down more than one log, being that the logs have a rounded surface, you have this little area behind the base on both sides. It's a good place for bees and spiders to get in and build nests. So the one way to correct that problem is actually to recess a piece of wood. Now you can do like I did here and go into 3 separate logs, or you can just do a single log by itself. Whatever size piece you want to put in is up to you. That would depend on what size light you're going to get, really. The best way to do this, take the piece of wood you're going to use, lay it on top of the logs, trace a line around the outside edge, set your skill saw up for approximately 1 inch deep. You've only have to come back enough to get back past the radius of the log, which is approximately 1 inch deep. Take your skill saw, set it for 1 inch deep, make a very nice cut all the way around the outside edge, then make a bunch of cuts in the middle. Take your hammer, remove most of the wood, and then chisel out the remaining pieces in the corners. Take the piece you're going to use, make sure it's going to fit. If everything fits correctly, you'll already have the hole cut out for your electrical box. Apply a bead of caulk around all the corners. It's not a bad idea to drill at each corner again so no water can get in behind there. Put the piece in, a couple finished nails will hold it into place. If your saw cut wasn't very good, you can always run a small bead of caulk along the outside to cover that up.